Hey everybody, Patton here, welcome back. So one of the major selling points of the Sega Genesis Flashback 2018 model is the ability to add your own games. And what's nice about it is that you don't have to hack it to do it. It's just basically running a firmware and adding your games. It's very simple. If you're thinking to yourself, well, it's an AtGames system, what are you talking about? I did a video covering all the reasons why you should actually get the 2018 model. I'll leave a link to that video in a card up top and in the description if you want to take a look at it to see if you would be interested in getting this system, even if it's from AtGames. So there's two different ways to do this. AtGames itself will provide you a firmware update which you can install on the system, and then you can add your own games. And then there's a custom firmware option which was created by a user on the GBATemp forums, rrifonas, I'm sorry, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. Using his custom firmware, you can add more than just Genesis games. You can add Game Gear, Master System, Sega CD, and even 32X games. And I'm going to cover both methods in this video. We're going to start with the AtGames firmware. All you need is an SD card. According to AtGames, the SD card cannot be any bigger than 16 gigabytes, and it must be formatted to FAT32. To get the update file, you just have to go here to the AtGames firmware update portal. Click this link right here. To get your file, you have to register on the website and register your system. And you can do that by entering your product UID. You can find your ID number by starting up your system, going to the About tab, and you'll see it right over here. After you enter the ID number and click register, you now have access to the download button. And on their site, AtGames also gives you instructions on how to do the update. It states right here, you just have to rename the image file to Sega_update.image. So we're going to start off by renaming this to Sega_update, just like this. So we're going to right click the image file, hit copy, and on our SD card, we're going to right click and paste. So the only thing on your SD card should be this Sega_update.img. Now we're going to safely remove that SD card from the PC, insert it into the side of the Sega Genesis Flashback, and start it up. Upon starting the console up, you're given this option right here. An upgrade firmware has been detected. Do you want to upgrade the console? Left for yes, right for no. We're going to hit left to upgrade the console. And then you get this notification here, installing system update. The update doesn't take very long, only a few minutes. Once the update is complete, you will get this message again. If you keep that image file on the root of your SD card, this will pop up every single time. So it's recommended after you've completed your upgrade to delete that from the root of your card. So this time we're going to hit right for no. You'll know the update completed correctly if you have the SD card option at the bottom of your list. So now we're going to add our game. So we're going to turn off the system, remove the SD card, put it back into our PC. So since the firmware updated correctly, we're going to remove this update file so we don't keep getting that notification. Now we're going to add a new folder to the root of the SD card, and we're going to name it Game, all capitals, just like this. And within the game folder, this is where you're going to keep your ROMs. So I've navigated to the folder where I keep my Genesis games. We're just going to add a couple to the system. We're going to take a look at Michael Jackson's Moonwalker and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, two games that are not native to the Genesis Flashback. So we're going to right click the games, copy, and in our game folder, we're going to right click and paste. We're going to highlight both games, right click, and extract the files here, delete these zip files, and now we have to rename the games so they will be recognized by the system. We have to take out any spaces in the game names and replace those with underscores, and I'm also going to take out all the special characters. So here's what the games look like before and after. Now we're going to change the extension, so I'm going to click on the game one more time until I can edit this, take out the MD, replace it with bin. You'll get this notification saying if you change the file extension, the file may become unusable. And that's okay, we do want to change this, so we're going to hit yes. So both games look like they're ready. I changed both extensions to bin. We've taken out all spaces. I'm going to leave this apostrophe right here, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, just to see if it works. So we're all set. We're going to safely remove the SD card one more time, plug it back into the flashback, and boot it up. So you can see at the bottom of our list there, the SD card option is now lit up, so it is recognizing those games. So we're going to go down here, and here's the two games that we added, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker and Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm going to hit A to start one up. And it seems like the game is being ran just fine. And any games that you add have the same options available to them as the other games. You have the save slots, and you have the scanline filter, as well as the borders. And it looks like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 booted up just fine as well. Graphics and the gameplay look really nice. Using the custom firmware method, things are done a little bit differently. We have a Genesis Flashback game manager here that comes to us from DC UK 7, also from the GBATemp forums. If you're familiar with HackG on the NES and SNES Classic, this works very similar to that. So we've opened up the game manager, and this is what we're looking at. First thing you want to do is go to openallgames.ini, pick your drive letter, and go to set up this drive. So in this drop down, you have the choice of choosing the Sega Mega Drive or the Genesis. Now once you hit start, it's going to go through this checklist and add these files to your SD card. First thing, it's going to ask you if you want to download the custom firmware for the flashback. And it says if this is your first time using the option, you should choose yes. So we're going to select yes. And you see the options here are check drive formatting, making sure the drive is FAT32. It's creating a ROM folder on the root, creating a blank allgames.ini file, and creating a mount_SD ini file. And then the last step here is going to be download custom firmware. When it's done, you'll get the setup complete message and then just click finish. So if we look at our SD card, we now have a ROM folder, the mount file, and the update image. Inside the ROM folder is an allgames.ini file. You need this to use the game manager. There are two update images, one for Genesis Plus GX, which is what we have here, and then one for Pico Drive. If you want to use Sega 32X games, you have to replace this update image with the Pico Drive version, which again is found on the GBATemp forums by rrifonas. Whether you're using the Genesis or the Mega Drive, make sure you pick the version that says Pico Drive next to it. So back at the game manager, we're going to hit open allgames.ini one more time, select our drive, click use this drive. This is just saying they will remove the update file for you if you wish. Since this is our first time updating, we're just going to select no, so the file stays there. We now have access to the Add Game button. So on the Add Games screen, we're going to hit the Browse button. I've already selected a few games that we're going to add. So we have a Mega Drive game with 3 ninjas, a couple of Sega Master System games, Action Fighter and Echo, the Dolphin, Addams Family for Game Gear, and then we have Final Fight CD down here at the bottom. So it is in CHD format. I had to create that by myself using a program I will leave in the description. And then you have these 3 files right here. If you're going to be playing Sega CD games on your flashback system, you have to have these BIOS files. So we're just going to go one by one. We'll add 3 ninjas, click open. We've got the game name here, the platform, description. You have to add your own description. You're going to go over here to the Google button and select your box art. And then you're going to hit this Add Game to SD card button. When you're adding a game that's not a Genesis game, such as Echo the Dolphin here, the platform won't change. You'll have to do that manually. So we're going to select Master System, and then we're going to hit Google for the box art. Sometimes if you don't change that platform, you won't get the correct box art, like the Genesis one would pop up first before Master System. Also make sure when you're adding your games, you go into the settings right here and the clean game names option is checked. That'll take out all the spaces and extra characters so that these games boot correctly. So all our games are added, we can close the game manager. If we look at our SD card and the ROM folder, here's all our games. They have been renamed correctly. All the box art has been added. The last thing we do, like I mentioned before, is to take these BIOS files, put them right into that ROM folder. And we're all set. We're going to safely remove the SD card from the system, plug it into the Genesis Flashback, and start it up again. So with the custom firmware, you'll notice some differences. You no longer have all your games under the alphabetical section, but just the games you have added to the SD card. And that's because using the custom firmware mounts the SD card as the main firmware, so it'll only read the games that are on that card. So if you want all your original games on here, you have to re-add them. They haven't gone anywhere. If you were to start up the console without the SD card inserted, they'll be there again. But see, there's nothing under Sonic games, bonus games, and the SD card option at the bottom is not highlighted. You still have all the settings and everything else intact. But as you can see, all our games have been added just fine and with box art. So we're going to start up Final Fight CD, a Sega CD game, and it boots up perfectly. Just make sure you have those BIOS files in that ROM folder. And the game is playing great, and you have that CD audio. Sounds really good. Much better than the Super Nintendo version. Nothing against, Super Nintendo or anything like that, but this is the version of Final Fight that you want to play. And just like the official firmware, you have access to the save slots, the scanline filter, and of course the bezels. Once again, all download links will be in the description of this video, as well as a link to the GBATemp forum where you can get information or help on running this program. That's all I got for you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is the part of the video where I thank those users who support the channel through Patreon. Eric Cologne, Mike Muniz, Sam Torres, William Wend, Yaroslav Oruzov,